Well, the first question that perplexes political life is the justification for the political order itself. Because the political order is characterized by the presence of law, the capacity to make decisions that are binding on people, even when it means overriding their private choice, their personal taste, their personal freedom, and replacing that freedom with a public rule. And all the great political theorists have raised the question, how do we justify that state of affairs in which some men are invested with the authority to rule others with the force of law? Now, when we come to the Constitution, the terms of principle in which people are governed, the first question is, well, how do we justify that state of affairs? And John Locke raised the question in this way. He said, what is the source of that positive law, not the negative law, the law that is posited, enacted in any particular place? Well, the source of the positive law is the legislature that is authorized to act. And then he asks, well, what is the source of the legislature? What establishes the legislature? The answer, the Constitution, which establishes that you may have a legislature or a legislature of two houses, no legislature. Then he raised the question, what does the Constitution depend on? Well, he said it must be some source anterior to the positive law, before you have a positive law. And that must depend on the natural right of human beings to be ruled with their own consent. So before we even have a constitution, you have to begin with a rightful ground of governance over human beings and the ground on which we have a constitution. And of course, what it does is alert us to those things we've taken as principles of the Constitution that were there before we made our Constitution. Principles that don't depend at all then on whether they are mentioned in the Constitution, like the principle on ex post facto laws. There was a big argument at the beginning as to whether it's worth even mentioning ex post facto laws in the Constitution, because James Wilson and Oliver Ellsworth said, well, everyone knows that. No need to mention it. Ex post facto laws is that people should not be held punishable for something pronounced a crime after the act was permitted, or a situation in which you enlarge the penalties for something that was thought wrongful earlier on, or presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now that was thought to be bound up with the very logic of a regime of law. Now I've heard one lawyer arguing before the Supreme Court saying that, Mr. Justice Scalia, I want to fall back on my right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, my constitutional right, but of course, presumed innocent until proven guilty is nowhere in the Constitution. But we take it to be there because it is bound up with the first principles of a regime of law.